cards are dealt the other way now, and for the last time, no more shuffling.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Fuel Shuffling the Deck. I am Tom Tuttle, and today we're going to be talking about a random player from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're going through the NFC South right now. We still got the Buccaneers left, and then the next episode is going to be on the Saints. So we'll see what that random player is today on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, all right, it's going to be Mike Evans. That's a pretty good one to get randomly selected because Mike Evans is probably by far their best player on their team. Every year in the league, since he's been in the league, he's had 1,000 yards or more. That's very consistent. However, on his touchdowns, that hasn't been as consistent. Last year he had 8 touchdowns, which is about in the middle of where he's been. I think it was 12-5, 12-5, and then we kind of predicted that he's going to be 12 again, where he got 8. So maybe now he's kind of leveling off and actually figuring out how to get, maybe it was 12-3, maybe, I don't remember. Maybe now he's leveling off and he's actually figuring out how to get consistent with his touchdowns. But it's going to be a little different too because now there's not as many wide receivers. There's just not that many good players on that team right now. So I would expect him to get somewhere around 8 touchdowns again, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up getting 3 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns, just based on his inconsistency that he's been throughout his career so far. I think the biggest thing with Mike Evans is going to be Jameis Winston. If Jameis Winston's terrible and the Bucs are just in a bad position and they just decide they're not going to go with Winston anymore, they're going to move on, and regardless of who the quarterback is, and they just decide to go out and get that backup quarterback in there, whoever it is going to be, I don't know how much Evans is going to be valuable if there's going to be a backup quarterback playing. There's no more Fitzpatrick, so there's not going to be Fitzpatrick throwing the ball down the field to Evans and just going crazy, because if it was Fitzpatrick, it'd be fine. There's no big deal if it was him. But the guys that they're going to have compete for that number 2 role is just not going to be good enough, in my opinion, for Mike Evans. So I don't expect Jameis Winston to lose his role this year. I think they're going to ride him out the entire year regardless of how poorly he may or may not play. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But the Bucs don't really have a whole lot of mouths to feed this year. Like I said, there's just basically Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, and I can understand a couple of the other guys. Okay, they're looking like they're halfway decent, but they got rid of some guys, so it's going to be a little bit different this year. So I would expect that there might be a little bit more attention towards Mike Evans and O.J. Howard because they don't have all of that they did last year. However, I also expect a lot more of Mike Evans. Like, it's just going to be wow. He's getting the ball every time. Jameis Winston's keying on him. I don't expect Jameis Winston to key on much of anybody else on that team. So, if Winston is the starter for the entire year, I expect Evans to have a very good year. Top 10 wide receiver easily, if he stays healthy. He's never really had much of a problem with health injuries or anything like that, so I think he'll be fine. He's always been an underrated wide receiver, but it's for good reason. The team has never been in the headlines. It's never made people think about that team in general, and nobody's ever been aware of the talent that Evans really has, because he's got really good talent, and I believe he'll be a top 10 receiver this year. There's no question in my mind that that's going to happen. So, bottom line, he is very consistent in yardage year to year, and it makes him have a lot of fantasy value. Right now, he is going in the second round in almost every draft, somewhere around 2.09. So that's not really that far from the third round. If you have the chance to get Mike Evans in the third round, that's really, really good value. I love it there. So if you have one of the first 4-ish picks and you're thinking maybe Evans can fall to you in the third round, maybe you take that risk, because now you have your first pick, your second pick, and you got Mike Evans. That's really, really valuable. He is the 9th receiver taken off the board right now in most drafts, which makes sense. I think he's top 10 fantasy value, and I do believe that is a good position for you to be drafting him. If you're getting a wide receiver in the first round or a running back in the first round, in that second round, you can definitely take a chance on Mike Evans. Or even in the third round if you're lucky, because it's going to happen in some drafts where he's going to fall to that third round, and it's going to be super valuable. So I want to just say that's going to be it with Mike Evans. I want to go ahead and say, if you're watching us on YouTube, please click that subscribe button, and you might as well click that notification bell as well. That way you get notified of everything. You don't have to go searching for us. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please give us a little review. That does help us out a lot. I don't want you guys to forget about Pole Sports, because Pole Sports is just amazing. Every time I go into Pole Sports, I think, man, this is just a great thing for fantasy football. You get all sorts of questions asked to you. You can ask your own questions. Who should I start? Who should I sit? Is this a good trade? Everything. There's all sorts of questions you got there. So go there, check it out at polesports.com. It is absolutely amazing. Polesports.com. You can find Fantasy Fuel at fantasyfuelpodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook, and you can find us on Facebook with the Fantasy Football Start 'em and Sit 'em page, which is another good place you can go to ask some more personal questions. It's Facebook. You don't get too personal, but there's fantasy football knowledge there. Go ahead and check that out. I think that's really about it. Just remember to check all of our episodes out. That's really something that we'd like you to check out. It's really, really pretty good content. We're going through all of our rankings right now and for fantasy football, and we did our tight ends. We did our running backs. We're doing wide receivers really soon. So go check out all of that stuff, guys. We really do appreciate it. And remember to stay fueled up this offseason.